Let's look at the element of causation in a negligence action. Dropping below a standard of care has to cause or bring about some form of injury or damage to the plaintiff. What does that mean, to cause or bring about that damage? Causation is generally broken into two tests or two standards. First is called the but-for causation, or cause in fact. Now, they call it but-for causation because the court basically looks at the conduct of the defendant and says, but for that conduct, would the injury have come about? Now, that's inclusive if you have multiple defendants. So you look at each of the defendants, or look at them collectively and say, but for their collective action, would this harm have arisen? So the key standard there is the defendant's activity a material and substantial factor contributing towards the harm? So that is cause in fact or but for causation. Okay. Now, the second standard after that is called proximate causation. Now, that standard is a little more subjective. It looks to see whether it would be reasonably foreseeable, given this conduct in the context and the situation in which the activity took place, would it be reasonably foreseeable that this type of conduct could cause this type of injury to the defendant? Now, there's a very famous case on this that established the standard, and it involved bringing fireworks onto a train. And the individual who brought the fireworks onto the train tripped and fell, and on the platform leading up to the train, it exploded and caused the platform to shake. Now, at the far end of the platform, a big metal clock falls over, okay? And it falls on a lady. So what actually caused the harm was the clock rather than any fire or blast from the explosion. So the court looked and tried to determine, in a negligence action, is it reasonably foreseeable that this type of conduct could cause this type of harm to the individual? Okay? So in general, the plaintiff or the person injured has to be foreseeable given this type of conduct. So would they have been one whom the defendant could reasonably expect to be injured by the negligent act? And that's the standard. So courts will weigh that and give the jury an instruction on that for the jury to determine, is this type of defendant this type of plaintiff foreseeable in this situation. Okay, so those are the two elements, cause in fact and proximate causation.